that's what you have convinced yourself.
No. I'm saying that's a plausible.
Like if you are advocating for the devil, you should stay so that I understand.
I'm giving you like it does make sense.
I hear you, but I'm saying that does that justify it? No, who should be president? Women cannot lead. The useless men that have been leading since the years that this country has been founded. Now, where have they led you people to? All through history, women had to prove by agitation, this analogy in conversations. The way cultures are formed is that something is done, something is spoken of, often enough, by enough people that it becomes the way of life. Bismillah, motide, motide. Did I just laugh like Ainana?
Like what?
Ainana. Oh my goodness. Good to be back on this episode. Very excited about this topic because this is a topic. You know how David was after God's heart? A man after God's heart. This topic is a topic after my heart.
Okay, what is it?
So, one time we spoke about people having reservations about feminism and how people are generally withdrawn or like how people would think.
Okay.
How people are not likely to embrace the feminism nomenclature because of the toxicity that seemingly surrounds it on Twitter. Remember we had that conversation. And I've been thinking about how exactly to let people understand what feminism is. And I realized that maybe the challenge is in bringing the name first, feminism. Because the truth of the matter is, when people have biases, whether those biases are informed or not, it informs their immediate disposition to how they receive something. And so, for the purpose of this conversation today, I want us to drop the name feminism and just generally have a conversation about gender and how it has played out in the society. Somebody asked me an interesting question recently.
Was it me?
Was it you?
I'm asking if it
could be.
Okay.
I don't know. Was it you? I don't know. Somebody asked me recently, and they asked if women have been oppressed through history. If women have been oppressed through history. Have women been oppressed through history? From your knowledge of history, and I know I'm asking you because I know that you are fairly. Why are you? What?
No, go on.
I'm asking because I know that you are fairly knowledgeable, or like at least, yeah. No, yeah. I know that you are fairly knowledgeable in history. So all those things that you have been reading, you've not read history.
No, you seem so confident I would know.
No. I said that I know that you will have an opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
A good opinion.
I know that. Yeah, I know that you will have an opinion. I know that most times your opinions are informed.
Okay.
So, do you think, in your own opinion, have women been oppressed through history? I want a yes or no answer first before we get into the
no, I can't answer yes or no.
Let me rephrase. I will rephrase. So okay. I want to ask like polar questions.
Okay.
So I will rephrase my question. Or maybe I should ask another question first.
Or you can ask it in a different way.
Yeah, so I want to ask another question that will now lead us to that question.
Okay.
Between when two children are born, when two babies are born, a boy and a girl, at that moment of their birth, is there either of the child who has any inherent greater value than the other?
Absolutely not.
Can you speak into the mic?
Absolutely
not.
not.
People at the back.
Every human being has inherent worth, and there is nothing about being born male that makes you better or superior to a child born a female child.
Okay.
So every child, whether male or female, black or white, big or small, has inherent
value,
equal value, equal worth. Yeah.
So now my next question: if we look through right now in society, like today as we are now, do you think that women and men have equal value in the society? Do you think, and if whatever your answers are, or whatever your answer is rather, you would have to back it up. Do you think that right now in today's society, you as a man, myself as a woman, do you think that today's society, and by society I'm not talking about just Lagos, I'm not talking about Yaba or any of those conscious environments, do you think in today's society, you as a man, myself as a woman, do you think society ascribes us equal value?
Largely speaking, no. So the tendency is to value maleness over and above.
I'm not asking
over and above femaleness. The tendency.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not true in all cases. There are cases where femaleness is valued than maleness, but
you
largely speaking, society tend to, for some reasons, value maleness over femaleness. In fact, you can a good example would be in the family context. Some people, for some weird reasons, prefer to have male children than female children.
That's an interesting place that you have gone to.
Yeah. So that kind of reflects the
dynamics, value,
what society prefers. Mm-hmm. So there's that preference. Social preference.
I like that you are saying preference, but you are saying preference because again.
Because if I say society values
so
male
what
origin
what
really
informs
that the
what
male
informs
is more valuable than the female? Okay.
What informs the preference? Yes. Do you want to say that
it should be different for different people?
Broadly speaking.
But I think what inform the preference is a relic of the ancient past.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I mean. There was a time when being male and the qualities that comes with being male, such as physical strength, agility, speed.
That's still physical.
Yeah.
So
that was the quality that was considered to be valuable.
To be more valuable.
More valuable because in fact that was the only value they knew. I could argue.
Yeah.
At the time.
I mean, because they were farmers and
hunters, they were graduates, so that was the only value they considered, useful. They were not cerebral, so they couldn't have known of things like being creative.
I think you are going too far.
Okay.
And
so you asked me to ground why I think society tends to value male.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's a relic of an ancient past. It's like they brought it forward. Okay,
so that's interesting.
I can't think of any good reason
my next question
to prefer.
That takes also my next question. Do you think, because you have spoken about relic of the past, now do you think that society, like historically, women have been marginalized, oppressed, if you would?
Oppressed, okay. If you say marginalized, you have to define it a bit.
Meaning that women had been excluded or women had been deprived of what's funny?
No, go on.
women had been deprived of rights, opportunities, access that were non-debatable for men. That men, by the virtue of being born,
Okay, so
had access to.
I'll answer on 2 levels. The
Let's
first
have
level
it.
is the fact that I think it is the fact that there were things that men did that the women did not do.
Such as?
Men. Okay, let me think of, say, in a sense, leadership, community leadership, kingship. I should know all other. I think of better examples. But then there were things that women were not allowed to do. I don't want to use the word allowed, because it begs the question of who did not allow the women to do.
I have a. I will let you land.
Sorry, I lost
I'm
the
so
question.
sorry. Okay, that's fine.
What was
the question I asked was, do you think historically women have been marginalized and oppressed? And you said you were going to answer on 2 levels.
So the first level is it is the fact that there were things that, or let's put it this way, there were opportunities that were not open to the female folk. But then the second level will be, why was that the case?
Yeah.
So that now tracks to your question. Was it that women were oppressed, or it was some form of societal contract? Contracts where the men and the women both agree that this is what the men should do this serves community.
I love that contract part.
So it's either that. So we know for a fact that there were things that women did not do, and we can interpret those, we can read with our modern minds, say this is oppression, this is marginalization.
But back then it may not have been. That's what you're saying.
We don't know.
I like
so
that you mentioned.
I don't know. I've not studied on that.
Yeah.
But it could be that the women
agree to it,
did not see themselves
as oppressed
or marginalized.
Let me.
Now, I've not said that is the case. I'm just proposing
what you're saying. So now let's walk through history quickly. Broadly speaking, we had the Dark Ages, right, where everywhere was like bush and wild, and the weather was harsh, because there were no housing, there were no all the things that we have now that have made our lives comfortable. They didn't exist. So they had to, men and women had to lean into their physical strength, biological strength. I think that's a better word to use, biological strength. Which means if you and I were in that era and I'm pregnant, I'm doing the childbearing and the child raising, and there are bears and lions and tigers outside, and I'm pregnant, and here you are with your flat chest and broad shoulders. You go to farm, you do all of those things. So it made sense that your physical strength was deployed in service of the community by fending and protecting us. And to support that, or to support my own contribution to society is somebody had to carry the pregnancy and nurture the kids. That was not a contract because it was not written anywhere. It was this. Hold on.
Could be like some.
Did you think that men and women start
contract?
Wait. Let's not use all those terminology, because you think that women and women. I think a good word to use.
Let me clarify.
Wait. Let's agree that there was an understanding in society.
You can say contract.
Let's say that there was an understanding in society that men would do this, women would do this. My challenge is, there was now a time when society started to advance, move forward. We didn't have houses before. Now we're beginning to have houses in whatever form it existed then.
Now we have.
So we need more. So hold on.
have
So now we need.
police,
So now we now started to need more than just farmers and hunters. Now we need custodians of history, because now generations are passed. So somebody needs to. Now we needed people to start to understand the vegetation around us. Which one is useful, which one is not. Now we started to need a lot more things. And in most societies, and I'm saying most because I know there are some exceptions. There are societies where
it is not the case.
It is not the case. But in many societies, men just, as society was advancing, men just automatically continue to advance. So they moved from being just being farmers and hunters, to being lawyers, to being doctors, to being leaders of community, because then politics was coming into place, to being like leaders of community, and women continued
to be child bearers and raisers.
And their worth and their
dignity is
value
tied to that.
Yeah. So in whatever else they did, if that's not like, you could do whatever else, but
they were not thought to be able to do other things.
Because now education was even coming into place at that point, and boys were educated. Pedagogy. We did history of education now. Boys were literally educated
differently.
Girls. Like the curriculum that they were educated with were totally different.
Because they believed that they had different roles in society.
Ascribed roles in society. Now we moved past that. Let's go to the medieval era.
Sorry, I want to respond to something quickly.
Okay.
The reason why it was the case that the men who were hunters and farmers became lawyers and whatever profession it was at the time, was that the underlying idea was that the men were meant to fend for the families. So whatever they need, whatever the job was, whether it was hunter or farmer, it was the men that would do that. That was why. That's a plausible reason for why.
Is that what you have convinced yourself?
No. I'm saying that's a plausible.
Like if you are advocating for the devil, you should stay so that I understand.
I'm giving you like it does make sense.
I hear you, but I'm saying that does that justify it?
No,
because what we're talking about
so
like when men started to become lawyers and doctors and engineers and all of those things. Okay, so your argument
I think
is
lawyers, doctors, engineers is like a far. It will be something different at the time.
So like,
but then it's not true that women were not doing other things.
Wait. Because you are stressing.
Sorry, I can think of women who were traders, who were also on fishing. Our society evolved at the time.
In different societies.
Yeah, in different
societies. So what I'm saying is, when let's move to medieval era, because I think it helps me to think, because I can think specifically about that era. So in medieval era, when that was like the boom of civilization, I think that was at that time that was modern.
No, I think it was called the Dark Ages. It was
medieval.
It was
after
there was
that
a rise in education, scholasticism.
Yeah, arts. There was a rise in that.
You know, all those time. But
now I want to speak specifically to like the arts part of it, because the artistic expression of the medieval era allowed, literally, like, was dominated by men, such that even the representation of women were done by men. And women artists at that time had to rebel, had to fight,
against
the society. So that the artistic
society.
What do you mean, what society? Meaning that so there is now an economy in the arts, right? But it was almost another exclusive boys' club. Even though of course artistic expression is not complete. If you are going to express humanity is not maleness. Humanity is male and female. So even when they wanted to express like femaleness, it was men that were expressing femaleness. They had to, like, you remember all of those things in literature, yeah? They had to like dress the parts, all of those things. But women existed in society. And women who wanted to be artists, maybe writers or whatever, had to do it in disguise. what I'm saying in essence is that that's medieval era. That's an industry, a new industry. And let us move to like industrialization and all of those things. I'm saying like as the world was changing, men's role and responsibility was evolving into like other things based on the needs of the day.
Understanding,
Yeah. And women's responsibility was still like the ascribed gender role still remained, such that now women can take on more jobs, but then you can only be teachers because you still have to nurture. Teachers nurture. So it was not a fight for you to be a teacher, but it was a fight for you to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. Because why would you be that? Do you have the brains for it? And they were not questioning. Most of the challenges about this was not even about whether our bodies were frail or small. No. It was whether you had the mind for it, whether your brain was functional.
Yeah. Land.
No. So like all of that up until this age where, of course, like a lot of things, we have advanced on a lot of things. But I'm saying that all through history, women had to prove by agitation, by rebellion, that the limitations that men or society saw in their body does not extend to their minds. And when the world now moved away from physical strength being the most valuable thing, whatever else was valuable was still given to the men. And women had to fight. Women had to agitate. And I'm saying this because this fight, this rebellion had always been happening through history before anybody knew the word feminism. But when we have this conversation, I think that many times people's minds are clouded just by their sheer disdain. And I want to be able, no, to be honest, I'm not, why are you laughing?
No, go on.
And I want us to be able to like deconstruct, like, don't always be about your bias. Let us remove the word feminism. Let us now objectively look at society. You have admitted on this podcast that women have men or the society in fact place higher value on men. Do you know how many, I remember growing up, how many women were shamed for giving birth to only girl children. Something that they had nothing to do. Like me, I'm just an incubator there. What you give me, I give it back to you. But the fact that the oppression of women or how much we didn't value women was so apparent in how society even reacted to things like a woman giving, especially in the West here, how people reacted to their wives giving birth to, or women, not even just their wives, women giving birth to girl children. It was as though they have done this abominable thing, and they have brought shame to the family, and the lineage will not continue, and the man is going to amount to nothing but you are the one that gave her the chromosome that, which one is female? Y X
is female, Y is male.
If you do Y, maybe you have a boy. As you did X, what do you want the woman to do? But it is the women that bore the brunt of it. It was the women that were shamed for it. It was the women that were the society. Leave me alone.
Society consisted of men and women.
Isn't that what
that's
I've
the
been
point
saying?
I wanted to make. So it is not that. So I do agree with the heart of what you said. Where there are nuances, for example, we cannot. I don't think we can say for a fact that the women at the time felt they were oppressed.
What do you mean? Why were they agitating to be included?
Because they were not all agitating. Only a subculture of women were agitating.
Yeah, let me tell you why.
Some women were with the program.
Let me tell you
and
why.
So
let me tell you why quickly. I'm sorry.
No.
Please let me tell you why.
That women were fighting to make society see them as better. They were fighting against men and women.
Said it, they were fighting against society.
So it is not really,
but the custodian of power and authority and access and the economy of society are men.
How did men have that power?
Because of the positions they've always occupied.
I mean, if you think to the first time when men became powerful, how did men acquire that power?
Because they were the conquerors. They were the ones. They were the conquerors. They were the colonialists.
So
they were all of.
You can understand why they might have that power.
Which is why, because is what you are trying to say. Yeah, is saying like, oh, why did the oppressed not like rise up to their oppressor? You two now, you're in Nigeria, you're oppressed by this incompetent, wicked government. How have you risen? Now, well, I digress. What I'm saying is, when people are oppressed, and the way culture, again, I've always said this, I've always made this analogy in conversations. The way cultures are formed is that something is done, something is spoken of, often enough, by enough people that it becomes the way of life. That's how, see, culture.
How would that be oppression?
That's how culture, like I was not talking, I was speaking to culture.
I mean, that could be the way.
The culture could be oppressive.
Yes.
And if the culture is, hold on, let me land.
Sorry.
And if the culture is oppressive, because these people have seen it, again, I don't want to use this thing that came to my head, but like, if it's the same thing with abuse at home, when a child has been told over and over again that they are idiots, they are non-entities, they would amount to nothing. They believe it. Because what? They're children. You have taught them to believe that of themselves. So they go into society believing that. Does it make it true? That's exactly how cultures are formed. I read something interesting one time on the internet about a family where they used to cut loaves of bread to make something. Like maybe you want to make a sandwich, but you used to like cut edges of the bread. But that's how this woman saw her mother did it. So she continued to do it. That's how our daughter saw her do it. So our daughter also continued to do it. Maybe like a third or fourth generation was that question, Mommy, why do we always cut here? And they say, well, I've never thought about it. That's how my mother did it. Call the mother. Mommy, why did you used to do this? In our own days, we didn't have, our pan was not large enough to accommodate the entire loaf. So you had to cut on both ends to fit into the pan. That's why. Not because it's the same thing about some people that don't eat like the first loaf of the bread. It's the same material. It's the same ingredients that is in the bread. Now, let me land. I've still not landed. I'm sorry.
Taking too much time.
I'm so sorry. My point is, culture. My point is, if a group of people, because that's society, right? A group of people have done something that usually will start from maybe one or two people in society. They have done it over and over again. Another people have been socialized into that thing. It becomes law. It becomes a way of life. It does not make it right. It does not mean that thing will not now outlive its relevance. And once it outlives its relevance and society refuses to update to the new reality, it becomes oppressive. It can become oppressive to the people who are now living a different reality from the reality from when this culture was formed. Now that's my point. You may speak now, my lord.
I agree with that. So the reason why I draw back.
Am I sweating?
The reason why I draw back in feminism is because there are some commitments that I cannot lend myself to.
Yeah.
For example, feminists believe.
Don't go to feminism because I said.
Okay.
Let's not. Okay. We want to talk about.
One core assumption is that women have always been oppressed, and to that I would say we don't really know.
You don't really know.
Do you know that women were for a fact oppressed, and it was not the case that women were in the program; they were with the program?
I have a question for you to answer that question. Do we know that cultures refuse to evolve with time when it comes to women, even when it has in fact evolved with time for men?
Yeah, in terms of roles, what men are expected to do, we've seen evolution. Even with women, we've seen evolution.
So what about in terms of access? in terms of opportunities, in terms of expression. Did you think that cultures over history evolve for women as it was for men?
Of course, the pace for women is slower than it is for men.
That's not the response.
I mean, the pace of growth.
Now, this pace
of change is slower for women than it is for men.
This pace, is there a system that say, okay, we can only transition men now, we will transition women later, but we understand your grievances and your pain, we will transition women later, but we need to transition. Is that the pace? Or was it a case that after this transition has in fact happened for men, usually for hundreds of years, then women begin to wiggle. One wiggle and raise their head like, what about it? Yeah, that's how cultures are changed.
That's what I'm saying. That some women still don't feel, so they may not have those desires,
yeah,
may not have those yearnings.
Can we agree that we can't speak for those eras? Quite all right.
Yeah,
but we can I agree. But we can assume that because we know how cultures are formed, and because we know the impact of socialization, of affirmation, of representation, can we say that those may have contributed to those?
Absolutely.
So what are we now saying in essence?
So my response will now be that how much of this reluctance to change is attributable to sheer ignorance.
Ignorance from which part?
So you said there was.
What about wickedness?
As I said, how much of it is that? So of course there will be parts of it that we can attribute to wickedness or just this thing. But I think any man, I really believe.
Please do not speak as yourself.
I think that if a man values his male child, as more than his female child, I don't think that's wickedness. I think that's just ignorance. It's just uneducated.
Also, that makes it okay.
It doesn't know.
Does that make it
no,
okay?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
you can't, because I want to be clear on does it make it okay? Your ignorance
does not excuse it.
Does it make it okay?
It does not excuse it, but it can explain why. It can explain part of why that's happening.
But it does not make it okay. Most times when people does not justify it.
Of course not. It doesn't justify it. But I can say one can explain that. One can understand that sometimes when people are resistant to change, it is not always because they want to be mean or wicked or inhumane. They just don't know better.
So if you don't know better, isn't that because I know that we had a conversation about not knowing better and seeking knowledge and knowing, because if you know that there is a possibility of knowledge gap, for example,
the issue is that you don't know that you don't know.
So like what I'm saying, no. So humility of knowledge is that if you know anything at all, you should know that you don't know everything.
If you don't know,
that's what I'm saying. Like, which means that so anybody who is ignorant to a level where they are unable to admit that there are things that they most certainly may be missing or may not know, there has to be another word for it but ignorance. Maybe a little bit of maybe a lot more of stupidity and foolishness and
the reason why this is more plausible is because some of the things that we claim, we think to know today, we take for granted. Like we just assume that this has to be the case, and so we don't subject them to any form of critical evaluation. Like if you grow up in an environment where somehow maleness is valued over and above femaleness,
most of us grew up in such environments.
You will pick that, and if you are not one that is given to reflection, you might live with that false idea throughout your life.
Which now leaves
and now
women.
If you are confronted with like an opposing view that no men
you are resistant to
you
it.
Want to
I understand. Which
and
is
so
why
that may not mean that you are bad.
That exactly.
It just means that you are ignorant.
That exactly. So if I as a woman living through the world, which I have had to do in many instances, I have been spanked in public, and people were telling me that I should get over it. I should be going.
By the way, I'm arguing for back then.
No.
What I'm saying is
we can't speak of now, because when we're talking about societal issues, right, we must consult history, because we need to know where we're coming from, the things that led to where we are now. right? So we have seen across history that society was evolving, roles were changing, men were taking on new roles, they were exploring creativity, humanity, because that's the fluidity of our mind, of this, how we can be surprised by our capacity is part of the exciting things about humanity. Men have had the luxury of exploring that, of going across oceans and seas. But women, they've had to fight for it. They've had to prove beyond reasonable doubt that they are in fact capable of it. They've had to become outliers. They've had to become outcasts because of things that men just do for the sheer reason, the sheer fact that they have a penis.
And I quite agree with that.
And it is, do you understand? Because when people call feminists angry, I say, yeah.
I mean, I
should,
cannot
because
justify.
it's injustice.
Sometimes
you should be angry.
Let me tell you, for the most part, the anger is misplaced. The anger.
What do you mean the anger
bitterness,
is misplaced?
the bad, because most times the anger is for. So they are feeling anger for an oppression.
Who are
that
you
is just,
speaking for?
I mean, some feminists that I know.
Because when you speak for feminists,
when your anger is your response to. Wait,
I have a simple question.
When your anger is a response to an oppression that we know, that is for your fact, that's grounded. But if it is for like an assumed oppression,
what assumed?
Like
Which of these oppressions is assumed now?
Like there was a time when women were not doing what women would want to do today, but the women then did not see it as oppression because they wouldn't do it in the first place. Like they didn't have any desire to do those things in the first place.
How do you know that for a fact?
I'm saying that we don't know that
because we know in history that there were women who wanted to do this. So again, let's hold on.
It might be that there were some women, but not all women.
Hold on.
And part of the resistance to those desires were not just male, but men and the
society.
women who were in the program. Society.
I understand that.
So if feminists today are now transferring their anger on
your
just
argument
men,
is also misplaced, because why are you fixated on? Why are you fixated on that?
I'm saying if your anger is based on a current oppression that you know for a fact.
Do we not know now that in society women are still behind?
But if your anger is based on like maybe like I'm saying sometimes we don't really know.
I have a simple question.
Okay.
I have a simple question. So I get your point about we don't know what those women feel. But you know that the idea of feminism and the ideal society should be that men, human beings, are free and equipped to pursue their interests and passion and give full expression to their abilities and skills.
Yes.
You agree with that?
I agree with that.
Do you know that the gender roles, these ascribed roles, did not only affect women? Of course, it affects women like 97, I don't have the actual data, but like a lot more than men. But there were also men who would rather do other things, who would, the stigmatization about men going into field that were nurturing, for example, nurses, for example, all of that, as there were men who would rather, but my argument is not for the men. But I'm saying that in the grand scheme of things, some women in today's world will still rather be at home caring for kids, and that's wonderful. But they know that should they want to start a podcast, they don't mind, is it FRSA? Which one is let's not talk about it. They don't need anybody's permission. They don't need any husband to write any kidney to do anything. But they have made a choice because they have options. When the options are taken away from a group of people and you have pushed them, you have reduced them, you have boxed them into only one thing, that there is oppression. And that's what women have been enduring.
I want to articulate my position and sum it up. I want to start by saying that we don't know, like we can't say for a fact that in the beginning of history, women feel oppressed because they were not.
I don't know why you are going back there because I didn't talk to you about that.
I'm summing up my argument.
Okay. Go.
We don't know for a fact, but if you assume that, like there was a social contract, written or unwritten, where okay, this is what men will do.
Yeah.
This is what women will do. Yeah. If you assume that, and then we now see that as time passed, we saw that society did not need that arrangement again, and then some people held on to that arrangement, while some people, usually the feminine or the women, saw that this arrangement is a relic of our past. We don't need anymore. And my argument is that the reason why we have a lot of gender tension today is because we have a crop of people who are still holding on to that ancient, outdated way of gender relations. And then there are other people who have moved on from that. I think that's why we have all the conflicts we have today.
Okay. I hope that, to be honest, I don't know how we got into. Anyway, I hope that this conversation what's funny.
No, go on.
Because I hope that this conversation provides people with, even if all you are able to do is to start to question, why do you see the women in your life the way you see them? Why do you have the expectations that you have of the women in your life? Because this conversation, this is not even scratching the surface. It's very deep it's very nuanced into our everyday, leadership at work, relationship between brothers and sisters, father and mother, expectations between, when a spouse, a widow and a widower, societal expectations of, with the timeline for moving. There are so many nuances to who should lead, who should be president. Women cannot lead. The useless men that have been leading since the years that this country has been founded. Now, where have they led you people to?
Inside even women don't think women. Some women don't think women should lead.
We have just had an entire conversation on why that is.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Because representation matters.
I'm just saying.
It's okay. Thank you, guys. We'll come back another time. It's okay. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Please follow, subscribe. Turn on post notification and follow us on social media.
Thank you.